Well, howdy, friends. My name's Lyons, and I have Eddie Stone with us today. And for those who have witnessed this phenomena in the past, we've had some pretty good times on these things. This is really an update call. We hadn't chatted in quite a while on recording, and I wanted to just pick your brain, check in and see what's going on, what's new with the company, how things stand and where we are, where we're going, what's coming up, all the usual. So howdy.
Yeah. Howdy. I'm still thinking about we're a phenomenon now. I didn't even know that. I feel like when you become a phenomenon, there should be a t-shirt involved or something. So I'm delighted to learn we've made that next ladder step in our lives, Winder.
Well, I mean, it's just it's one of those things that just happens.
There you go, for good or bad.
One way or the other. What's up, Doc?
Hey, you know what? There's a lot. So we're approaching, for those that haven't seen us before or don't know the chronology of all these things, we're approaching our 11-year anniversary. And it's interesting to me. I in some ways it feels like it passed like the blink of an eye. In other ways, as I sort of think about it, I can feel almost every moment, every sort of milestone. We started out fairly traditionally, like in a big office, I think 12, 15,000 square feet, and all sort of the hubbub of an office. And then all of a sudden we're like, should we be doing this? Should we be offline? Should we be in the cloud, living our environmental ethos and some other things. So, and then embracing digital marketing, which people don't have to know that term to sort of generally understand that that's a big part of our success, which is mainly means that you're sort of tailoring your marketing to the interest an individual person has shown. So, for example, if they've looked at super green juice, when you retarget and go with additional information to them, it's about the green juice and its ingredients, right? So it's about personalization of the experience with us and the website. And then there's advertising and things that go with it. And so I can feel all that, but it's been great. And I have to say, as I talk to the team, even talking to you, listen to your voice and your enthusiasm, or people on the staff, it feels as fresh, just bigger than it ever was. And the mission, to go out there and educate people and try to have a real positive impact on the community and life and longevity and financial well-being and all these things is still, there's probably a greater need than ever. And so our role and our vision and where we want to go with this remains, firmly important in all of our minds. And so it's continues to be an exciting time. I mean, for those that are listening that they want to know some numbers, we were up 40% in January of 2023 last month over January 2022. And January 22 was a particularly good month. And so we also continue to see, we'll probably have 35 to 40,000 new customers, VBOs, and affiliates come on board this month. And so the appetite for what we're doing, I know the overall economy has some challenges, but it just proves to me that if you develop products that are really proven, people get a good benefit from, they taste good, perceived and have a good value, that there's a place for you, no matter what they might say about the economy's ups and downs. So pretty exciting.
Well, I've always admired your approach because, and you and I have known each other for a long time now. And one of the things that if people do not understand it, I think it's important that they should, is that you never compromise the integrity of the offering for any reason. It's always as good as it can be. And you take the long view that even though that diminishes your profit margins in the short term, it certainly is proving out that it's enabling you to build an amazingly solid company in the long run. Because I have watched you over these last years, because I joined right at the beginning. I've watched you pour a vast amount of resources back into growing the infrastructure. And I would say that there's nothing lacking at this point for us being able to take this into exponential growth. It seems to me everything is in place.
Yeah, that I believe so too. And I thank you for saying that and that observation. I think you've got to be mindful in life of reinvesting. And I don't necessarily mean just in business, but also personally. And when I think about things like exercise or taking the time to eat right, that's reinvesting in yourself for your, so that your future self says, thank you, past self, for eating a little bit of broccoli and exercising a little bit or whatever it happens to be. And so from a business standpoint, I'm reminded of the old story about the guy that's got to go chop down a series of trees. And he's got a real deadline and he's in a hurry and he's chopping. All the while the axe is getting duller and duller and duller. Eventually he's just beating the tree. But when someone suggests that he stop and sharpen the axe, he's like, I don't have time. Well, that's a real conundrum. So you gotta take care of the infrastructure and the system. And so we have done that. We're a pretty large company today, and we're quite capable of being even larger from an infrastructure standpoint, and certainly now from a marketplace standpoint.
Well, you're adding onboarding employees all the time, and you're adding staff and management and customer service and everything. So it seems like you're kind of like right on top of it all.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So yes, I believe we are, right. And one of the things we did last year was we reached out to a highly regarded consulting firm for the direct sales space, few other attributes that they have, and said, hey, we've been doing this 10 years. And there may be things that we don't know. So we're going to invite you in here for an unvarnished review of our business practices and our infrastructure and individual staff, including myself, right? So you don't know us and we don't know you, so it won't bother us when you give us this unvarnished opinion, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that's
the good
cool.
news was we had good commentary, but my point of that is, just like I think it's important as an individual to spend some time on examination, only in so much as that the past or even the current moment, if you choose to, can educate the future. It doesn't have to govern the future. And so for us, we've tried to do that as a daily practice. Even so, you mentioned support. One of the things we've done in the past 6 months is invest in a lot of technology for support, just so that when they're creating some common transactions, this is how granular it gets. Now, if we can knock 18 seconds off the cycle, in some cases, you might knock 40 seconds off the cycle of the work they're doing, right? While somebody's on the phone. All these things really have this cumulative impact. So you get experts that work with softwares, like we have a product we use in support called Zendesk. And this is kind of how the sausage is made, right? It's not the most sexy subject in the world, but Zendesk is this wonderfully robust customer service management system. How you move around in it, how it pulls in external stuff. Somebody says, where's my shipment? How does it integrate with the shipping services? All these kinds of things. And so we are constantly striving to improve these processes so that individual person's experience, whether it's on the products, which I hope is a real obvious place we invest ourselves, but even on service or logistics, and not that it's perfect, but it's constantly getting better. All these things I think are the attributes of what helps a company go from good to great over time and stay there as best you humanly can.
So did they have any massive recommendations for you?
They did not. They had a couple subtle things, but nothing on a big scale.
That's impressive.
Which was good and bad, right? Because it's kind of one of those things that you pay a pretty large fee. You think, oh, really? Tell me something. And so if a lot of what they're telling you is recognition of something you're doing, I'm like, okay, that's great, but I want more. So we did get some logistical advice, maybe how you handle from a shipping transactional standpoint, mostly on an internal shipping standpoint. So when we think about shipping as an organization, which is a huge investment for us, right? Because most products are shipping for free. And so we don't offset shipping with revenue. So it's something we have to really think about, manage well in times of, say, fuel surcharges, which last fall was fuel surcharges, what it happens to be. So there's the consumer side of it, which is straightforward, but constantly changes, right? It's constantly rule changes, whether it's UPS, FedEx, DHL, weather, right? All these things. So it's a living dynamic, but internally moving things around is also interesting and expensive. A year ago, if you were moving, say, 3 tractor trailer loads fully loaded of components from one part of the organization to the other, that was almost 3.5 times more expensive than it is today.
Whoa.
The marketplace changes. So there's all these things that they are definitely not the most exciting part of it, but they're part of what makes a business work.
You getting into AI?
We do use AI. AI, though, is it is artificial intelligence, but it has to have a human backup. And so, for example, people may have noticed in the last 90 days, there are more and more ways they can self-resolve, cancel an order, process a return, whatever it happens to be. That's just a part of the normal logistics of tens of thousands of monthly order transactions. We now have software that will recognize commonality to where they are, what they're trying to do, and or even over the long haul or something that's happened recently. And so I'll explain that in just a second. And so it'll pop up and say, here's a solution based upon what you seem to be trying to accomplish. And, we've driven that number to almost 9.5, 10% of the time. That's the solve. Started out when it first came out about 2%. So it learns and we learn from it and modify the language and how it's speaking to people, because a lot of times a problem is solved without talking to a person, because what a person looks at speaks to them in a way they understand it. And so you need to be on top of that kind of stuff. So our support team, they're really good at that kind of stuff. Logistics types issues. So most of your audience has heard of Brexit, right? A few years ago in the UK, they said, you know what, we don't want to be a part of the European Union anymore. We're going to separate. And it was an acrimonious separation that continues to have reverberations. Well, we've had, excuse me, Winder, we've had for a long time a warehouse in the UK that serviced the EU seamlessly. I mean, 2 years ago, you could order something in Paris and it shipped out of London and it was there in 3 days, right? I mean, just really a quite simple, wonderful system. But since Brexit, each step of that process has eroded some, because these countries are not in agreement, or basically it's the UK doesn't agree with some of the EU's work. Right. And so we're going to now be opening up a warehouse in the EU to service the EU, because, for example, Belgium and Spain no longer really want to check in packages emanating out of the UK that have under $100 in value. And so these are things where studying the statistics and call it AI, whatever is appropriate, helps you spot and see, oh man, there's a pattern to what's happening here. Let's figure out, how we got here. And all of a sudden you realize there's a dollar figure involved, just
right. Would it help you with I'm sorry. Would it help you with compliance issues?
Yeah. So that's another issue where one of the things we recognize is when we first started out, we weren't necessarily on anybody's radar. So you might have been able to get away with not fully examining every post that you see. I mean, we generally speaking can eyeball stuff and say, boy, that's a little out of line when you tell them to take that down. But now it gets out of our grasp, one, because of scale, but two, we're now bigger. And so the FTC and the FDA have a more watchful eye. And the role those two organizations play, there's some crossover, but FTC is generally looking for income claim information, faults, whatever it happens to be. And then the FDA is looking for product claims, cure, treat, heal, mitigate disease. And so we've had to hire a company, and this company actually works, excuse me, closely with both regulatory bodies on a daily basis to help identify what are the critical issues people are concerned about. And so now they scroll everything we do, our website, all our posts, and by extension, the post of people that are using our name, product brands, things like that, just to help us stay in compliance, which for the tens of thousands of things happening on a weekly basis, we get 2 or 3 people that get a notification to either take down a post or edit it. I'm pretty impressed with that. We got a
Yeah,
really
that's wonderful.
strong group of people.
Well, that's always a concern for those of us who, really have the best interest of the company at heart, because we want the golden goose to continue. That you get bad actors out there, and part of what with my groups as always, as you know, if we find a bad actor, we turn them in. If we
Yeah,
find
that's
somebody,
right.
and everybody should be doing that. But if you have AI involved, it's not going to miss stuff. So I thought that's pretty smart.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of self-policing, and this AI is good enough that, for example, somebody makes a video, it makes a transcript of the video. So it's not on YouTube or Facebook, whatever, right? So I mean, it's really good, and what we have found is that 99.9% of the time, it's a very innocent thing.
Just a
They
mistake.
They just didn't know the keywords, right? And so it's just wonderful to see people's reactions, like, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I've taken it down already." We don't want them to get too scared, because it's all about just a proper amount of caution. But
Sure.
the
Um,
people have reacted quite well to it.
Well, most people aren't bad actors. It's rare that you find a real sociopath in the mix that doesn't care. It's rare, and especially with this company, because we're not going to attract those kinds of people. This is just not.
Agreed.
This is not designed for them. This is, but I understand that you've made some changes to the comp plan. You have other things in the works in terms of additional product offerings and all sorts of things. What's the future look like?
Well, let me start with a little bit of past, and then we'll talk about that. So, from a product standpoint, we could not be more happy with our release of Fulvic last year, or fiber. And in fact, before we started this recording, you and I were talking about kind of the least sexy subject in the world, but how much we enjoy fiber.
Yeah.
And fiber that tastes good.
Yes.
I mean, I am dedicated to having it before every meal. I love it. My body works better. It's
How
fantastic.
long before the meal do you take it?
Oh, right before, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay, every meal.
Yeah. Yeah. I just,
One
there's
scoop or two.
a two.
Okay.
Two.
All right.
There's enough digestive enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics in it. It just aids the body in digesting. And while I have a pretty clean diet,
yeah,
there are occasions where I might rifle through on Super Bowl Sunday half dozen chicken wings.
It's a good
So
game.
it was a good game. And so I'm mindful of that, and that's just one more way for me to support my digestion and how things move through my body.
That's good info.
We do have had a couple of really exciting releases for the year, and I'm not ready to announce them or really give a hint, but really interesting, and will garner the attention of a lot of people. One in particular, 85% of the adult population in our country could directly, right now, today, benefit from.
Wow.
Even one use of it. And so we're really excited at that standpoint. On the compensation plan, for someone like you, the plan started out, I hate to use this set of words, but I don't know of a better way to do it, but let's call it a little conservative, meaning it didn't have all the bonuses it has today because you don't fully understand behavior and payout. And a company like ours, we can't really afford to see that payout exceed 50%, right? That's the right number for us. That's what's built into the model. And so you pay close attention to these things. And that's competitive, if not more competitive than most companies that are out there. And so over the years, we've added some bonuses. One of the biggest moments was adding the star bonus. Once upon a time, we added the matching rank advancement bonus to the persons that are the enroller. And so, when we see we can afford it and it's going to complement the right behavior, the advanced referral system, all this stuff came as time went on. This year, we'll make this official in the spring, but it's happening now. It's just not visible. Is that if you are a regional director or higher, you're now qualified to get an additional 3% on the referral bonus program on the 4th level. And so if you're a big leader really making a contribution and and giving the example that you enroll customers and VBOs, and this is how you grow your business, you get rewarded for that at an even deeper level of pay. And then if you are at the national director or higher, it's not only do you get that fourth level, but you get a fifth level at 3%. And so that's a meaningful amount of money for, will be a meaningful amount of money for a lot of people. And we take it as a real, a sense of pride to be able to do that 11 years into the business.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
To offer that and support how people build business.
Well, for those who aren't conversant with comp plans, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And it has real potential for someone who's actually engaging in the business to earn a lot more money. So, well, thank you for that. That's wonderful news. And I'm really looking forward to the new product stuff. You really got my attention with that one. The fiber has been just incredible. I'm literally having people on my team raving about it. People who've never raved about anything are just going nuts with this. And what, one of the things, it works on so many levels, but the fact that it tastes so good, it's a standalone, delicious drink. And I've never seen anything like that in the realms of fiber.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because there's a lot of people that worked hard on that, both the mouthfeel as well as the flavor. And internally, our philosophy is, if it's tough to choke down, people won't do it very long.
Ain't gonna do it.
So, let's not say to someone, well, I know it's terrible, but it's good for you. Come on. It's 2023. We can do better than that. So.
Yeah, and it stirs. I have someone say to me yesterday, well, how is it that it stirs so easily? I mean, you just stir it in water and it completely dissolves. Does that mean there's not as much of the insoluble fiber, or is it just you got some kind of genius thing going on here where you figured it out?
No. It's got the right amount of soluble and insoluble. And remember, it's got a robust amount of protein.
Yep.
But when you're testing things like this, and let's say there's a couple of different herbal ingredients that will accomplish the same thing, well, then what you have the luxury of doing is combining different sets of ingredients and see which ones mix better, more easily, stay in solution, fall out of solution. And so, there's probably 10 or 12 other things that could have been in that formula, natural ingredients, USDA organic, would have had their own argument, right, for existing there, but it wasn't stronger than the one that's there. And so, when you've got a recipe like that, you can play around and say, which of these guys are more compatible, in solution. And we do all of that water-based at room temperature. So that's the best way to see what's going to happen. If you do it cold, it's a little bit of a disguise. If you do it hot, that's a little bit of disguise, so you want to make sure you do it at a room temperature with water, and then know that everything else will just be easier.
Well, it's a standalone, delicious drink. So congratulations. I've never seen anything like it. Neither has anybody on my team. It's just a phenomena. So I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, because everything you do comes out in the same way, really, in my view. And
I just know some smart people, Winder, and I keep them involved.
Well, that's perfect. Well, sir, I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation before we call it a day?
Let me just say this. One of the things I've realized of late, particularly around the holidays, it's really dawned on me around friends and family, is that people can really get caught up in the doom and the gloom of the economy, inflation, whatever happens to be in this larger sense. And I recognize all those, there are real ramifications when people can't afford gas and whatever it happens to be. But you can, just like you can take charge of your health with certain tools, such as the food you choose and environmental things, exercise, whatever types of products you consume, you can do that with work too, with building your own economy, with your own home-based business. And so we do live in a world where people are generally skeptical and jaded, but don't be so much that way that you're not open to the opportunities that sit in front of you. We're a great opportunity. And there's a lot of people from just all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of, ages, demographics, and all over the world that are finding themselves doing something important for their household with this. And so, if you find yourself in that need, make sure you give yourself a chance.
Well, I can, my story kind of is a good testimonial along those lines. From the start of the pandemic till now, my group volume has grown from around 100,000 a month to almost 900,000 a month. And that's during a massive downturn in the economy. My check has done nothing but go up over the last 3 years. And if that speaks volumes to things. And so I completely agree with what you're saying, is that if someone's looking for a way to make a difference in their life, this is based in truth. This is based in goodness. And if you want to invest yourself in something that's going to have a good return, I can't think of anything better to do.
I can't either, but I recognize my bias. But I won't hesitate to invite people to get involved with us and have fun with us, because
Well, me
that's
too.
one thing we do.
Well, sir, it's all, as usual, a massive pleasure to communicate with
Wanda.
you. Thank
as
you for
well.
all the wonderful info and for everything you're doing. And I will look forward to our next interaction.
Sounds good, my brother. Thank you, Winder.
Thanks.